Welcome back to Feed the Trolls for 2026. We've had a little bit of a delay starting because I have spent a considerable amount of time just waiting for something to happen. I was so sure that some roster shift was going to happen, and then I was like, and then that'll be the episode. And then, like the meme of the guy with the stick, that was me waiting. Eventually, last week, I actually messaged Thorin and I said to him, let's book for this week to record, because after the HLTV Awards, just before Blast, the juicy change is going to happen, and nothing happened. So DusT is joining us to talk about how absolutely nothing happened. DusT, you've been making videos about all the roster changes throughout December. That must have been like pulling teeth.
It was so shit I had to stack them together like in one video. I couldn't do like videos on each one because they were just so bad. Like you had to just kind of conglomerate them all together just to have something to talk about. I mean, yeah, just only really one top team made changes. I mean, I guess Mongols technically also made a change, but that was kind of a force when we knew that was going to happen. But, of the ones that weren't forced in that situation, yeah, only Spirit make a change of the top 10. So it was pretty wild.
Anyway, this is why there's a difference between being a journalist and being a leaker, because a leaker just hears a rumor, and I would suggest most of these ones. By the way, I don't actually doubt that there were lots of potential moves on the table, and maybe Na'Vi would have lost a player, and Falcons would have gained a player, and all those things you heard of Mouse would have cut to, all these things that never end up happening. The problem is, though, it's very different from like you hear rumblings that a player wants out, or the team doesn't want this guy, or maybe they think they can get an upgrade. That's different from the moves actually happening, someone's talking and contracts are being offered into. So the difference is there's a reason why Richard Lewis used to famously say when he did roster reports that he had a 100% success rate, because essentially, even if he'd have done a story that had said like someone would join that didn't, it would have been like that one with Nell and Nico when he was going to join Falcons, which he obviously was. He just last minute changed his mind. The problem is a lot of the people now, like when people on podcasts say, oh, I've heard there's going to be this move, what that really means is, yeah, the rumor is just out there. Like maybe they're looking for a different player, or they were mad at this guy at the last event. But unfortunately, there is still a chasm between that and they're 1 second from signing the contract, So I think sadly people got a bit baited in this off-season, because it's actually 2 off-seasons in a row now. Remember what everyone said at the end of the first season last year? Like, well, now that Vitality's won everything, everyone will have to change their rosters. And you got like 2 small changes. I'm like Zway joined Spirit, and like Na'Vi got Mikaze or something. Like, there actually haven't been as many blockbusters. We've been promised some epic roster mania, but hasn't happened for years now, has it? By the way, in light of this conversation, because I actually do think it's all the VRS cause and all the points thing that's stopping people doing these moves.
I remember, I think it was in 2014 when we first started the show, we had Kassad on.
2024, but it's all good.
It was a 22. Oh, my brain isn't working. But Kassad was here, and he was talking.
I definitely didn't know you in 2014, I'll tell you that much.
Did I say 2014?
Yeah, you did. It's all good. It was a brain fart. It's all good.
Yeah,
first show of the year. First show of the year.
I met DusT in 2015, so
yeah, that's correct. Yes.
Thorin has aged me by like 10 years. That's how it feels. But Kassad
feel like we're doing the show 10 years. Fair enough.
Yeah, there we go.
That's also what it feels like to do a show with me.
Kassad came on, and he was going on a Falcons rant, as Kassad does. But I remember at the time he was just going on and on and on, because they were at that point they had obviously there was talks about them getting the ends core and blah blah blah. And he was going on and on about how the inflated prices and the fact that he blamed Falcons completely, but he was saying this is going to completely mess up the market. Everyone is overpriced. It's going to really screw up roster moves as we know them. And he kind of went on his rant, and we all giggled and tapped him on the head and said, nice one, Kassad, put him back in the cupboard. But then we saw Apex on HLTV confirmed after the HLTV Awards, Thorin, and he straight up said, like, there have been lots of conversations, and I think Striker confirmed it as well, where they said, like, a lot of people were looking to make moves, but it's just too expensive now. Like, players are kind of priced out of moving from their teams. Do you think that has been the case in this offseason as well?
100%.
I mean, one of the funny things, if you think about it, is actually one of the cost-saving measures people implemented, which was get an academy team, has in its... Here's what's funny. The academy team saves you money if you put that player into your team, because then you just, there's a minimal amount you have to get him up to speed, and then there's no buyout. You put him straight in your team. Also, if you've ever noticed, people don't realize Mouse doesn't just have an academy team. They've also done some like cynical stuff that I've noticed some of the bigger orgs that have an academy team do, which is, it's one thing if I'm selling you to Falcons. If I do that, you're just buying the player. If I'm selling you to a smaller org, smaller than my org, what you do for your mouse, etc. is I put a little buyback clause in, so the buyout's not as much. But if he's actually good, like Shuhei or someone, I can just bring him back a year later and go, actually, you come and play for me now. So there's that aspect. But the problem is, in the same way as it's saving the team that makes the academy the money, that also means that same player, if he'd have come up not through an academy, would just be on some random tiny org, wouldn't he? So actually the buyout would be fairly reasonable for that player. Unfortunately, if you notice, I would say the obvious example that shows where the watermark for this is last year when Fnatic signed that player from Passion UA called Jambo, the AWPer. Now, if you remember, they signed him for 700,000 and it made everyone go mad and go, Fnatic are all idiots. It's like, mate, that is the going price. I'm sorry. Like, if you want a player that's supposedly already like, because a lot of people said he was like going to be one of the next good players. He was like a rising talent. He was good on that Passion UA team. If you're at that level, then also these teams do charge each other an arm and a leg because essentially you're gambling that this guy becomes a top player. So unfortunately, even some of the things that have benefited the scene have made this worse in some regards because it does seem like this is what people don't get. Everyone always looks at the top of the market. They look at the fact that, it costs millions for Monacy and that. The real problem, mate, is it costs millions for Monacy, but he's a pretty guaranteed product. Like, he's going to be really good. The real issue is it costs 700, 800K to take a crack at someone. No one even knows if they'll ever be actually a top player. Maybe like Jambo, they're just an all right player and they never rise to the Molodoi Monacy level,
Yeah, 100%. I do think the weird one about this one, though, is it's like kind of going to what you were talking about, Thorin, about the whole Mouse NXT system. They have a buyback clause on PR.
Yeah.
So that's kind of what surprised me was like
that was why the rumor was he was going to join their team, right?
Yeah, because that's the one move you can make where you wouldn't have to pay a full buyout price because you did build in that buyback clause when you loaned them out or however the sale took place over to Gamer Legion. And so it's like, okay, that's a move that Mouse can make that's not going to cost them a whole lot, and they still didn't pull the trigger on it, which was kind of wild because look, like real quick, when we look at all the top teams that didn't make moves, I'm actually okay that Falcons didn't make a move. Maybe I'm like one of the few that feels like I think there's still room for that team to grow. Whereas Mouse is on the opposite end of the spectrum. They have maxed out, in my opinion, big time. Like, I don't think they get any better than this. In fact, I think they could drop down the rankings rather rapidly, depending on how some of the other teams pan out. And it's like, if you have a buyback clause on a guy that can instantly improve your team with more firepower, do it. Like, you got to do something because right now you're just circling the drain of being a semifinalist only the entire year, basically. It's like, how much longer are you going to wait that out before it's like you want to aspire to more, and more means I need to change something about this team?
Okay, I'm going to shake this up because I was actually going to ask you both this at the end, but seeing as we're here, obviously, DusT, you mentioned Maz and saying that you were surprised they didn't make a change. Thorin, who were you most surprised at, that the team that didn't really swap out their roster?
Right, I'm going to do this based on like my take, not what would happen, could happen. I think the three teams, I think DusT nailed one with Mouse because I agree they've clearly plateaued. If anything, they would get slightly worse. And the one thing they can't afford to happen, which I think will happen this season by way of people like Spirit, is they can't afford for another top team to get better than them because they're already sort of stuck at that level where they come third and don't win the tournament. So I think the other two teams that, in my opinion, had to be realistic and make roster moves, but neither did for obvious reasons, is FaZe and Na'Vi. They're also teams where it's like, on your best day, you couldn't win the fucking tournament and get in the finals or win it in the finals, depending on which team you talk about. Like, so to me, I think like the Na'Vi one, I can at least understand more because it looked like he played great CS and, you just dream that that's possible. The FaZe one, look, I'm not going to say that losing in a random online game is the normal level for them. That's obviously too far the other way. But if they really believed any of that stuff at the major was real, like, you're as deluded as your fans. Like, I feel like the FaZe one, I'm sorry, I just think FaZe is just not money made. That's what I've just sort of resigned myself to that. I think it's copium that they tell themselves this is the new roster and Jacob's going to be mega. I don't know if I believe it, but I think those two teams, if you could have made one big roster move, they could be right back in the mix.
Well, can I tag on to the FaZe one really quick? Because you're right, I don't think they have money for buyouts, but apparently Dexter's a fucking free agent. He doesn't have a buyout. And you're telling me he's not better than Brokey on the op?
Yeah, that's the problem, DusT. This is the problem with it being Brokey, though. It's like their mate and the Three Musketeers and all that shit. And also, they're just thinking of all the great moments at the major. Like, no, I believe in him. It's like, nah, fuck off, whatever.
I mean, you can't bank on that for ages, but go on. Sorry.
I had a thorough spanner in the works, though. Also, because I was at the HLTV Awards, I spent way too much time talking to players, so now I'm on their side. Like, The biggest issue here is the vibes, guys. It's the vibes. That's the word for 2026. Like, you got to get on.
You know what does bad for vibes? Losing for fucking 6 months until you get to a major and pull off some kind of bullshit for one tournament.
Someone says that to me, like the most classic example in the history of Counter-Strike, sadly, is when Shocks would keep playing with Smiths. And it was for that reason. Like, yeah, but the vibes.
The vibes.
And I used to go, yeah, great. Here's the difference. I'd rather win the tournament and go, fuck you, see you next tournament, than be like, well, we lost, but I tell you what, it's brilliant playing with you and losing. Like, what's that? Because that does, right. The vibes only get to be a differentiator if you're already a good team. If you're already a good team, yeah, I get it. You want to pick people you like. And you have the problem is, like he says, if you just come 9th place in 4 tournaments, the vibes could be amazing, mate. It's not going to touch the sides, is it, at that point in time?
Do you think, though, that like when you take a 18, 19, 20-year-old kid I sound like a mother now, but like someone that has spent most of their teen years locked in their room playing this game, they don't really have the social skills and the maturity to understand the dynamics of people and work, and the sense that unfortunately sometimes you're going to work with people you don't like. You have to figure that out. You have to deal with it, because at the end of the day, I think football players know this because they're trained from such a young age of like, okay, cool, you're not going to get on with every person in your team. There's going to be a dude that you can't stand off the field, but you understand that you get paid ridiculous amounts of money. So suck it up, buttercup, and you figure out how to make it work in the server. I sometimes wonder if that is where teams lack in terms of the support that they give young players to understand that a little bit better, so that you don't have this situation where it is so difficult to make a change because people don't know how to really adapt. And I don't think this is the case with FaZe. I say that. I mean, Elige was a good example. It just didn't vibe, right? So figuring out how to make that work, I wonder if that is also why DusT, some teams are a little bit loath to make a change now, considering how close it was at the end of last year, and you're possibly worried about what happens to the team dynamic, if you like.
Yeah, but you've been pissing away the last 2 years of this game. I mean, look, I think, yes, if you take every other tournament out of your brain and you focus only on majors, yeah, FaZe has been crazy wicked on that part, right? They obviously,
and Navi.
Yeah, I mean, they obviously did great, making deep runs in both majors in 2024. They obviously had the miraculous make it to the playoffs of the Blast Awesome major despite having a terrible season because of the Hail Mary was simple. And then, yeah, obviously this last major was absolutely fucking bonkers that they made the finals at Budapest. Like, there was no way they should have made it that far considering how, poorly they had played that entire second season. Pretty much the only success they had before Budapest was that last hurrah with Rain that, no one expected because they thought he was gone out the door. And then Jacob sitting there on the cuck chair watching his team go on and have a 4th place finish. But now you get into the major, and other than like that miraculous stage 3 where Jacob all of a sudden leveled up and actually played really well, you had the odd game where Brokey had a miracle and actually played at a high level, and you got all the way through Budapest. Like, do you really think you're going to build on that is kind of my question. Now, on the Jacob side of things, I can understand it. You haven't had that guy for very long. He kind of came in and out of the team in kind of a weird way when Rain had to come back for EPL. I can understand, like, hey, we got to give him a fair shake first before we decide to move on from this guy. But Brokey's a known value that you've had for years at this point, right? And look, I'm not trying to say, I'm not going to go the other way. Like, Brokey had years where he was a fantastic player for his team, had mega impact. He had many good years of playing Counter-Strike on this team.
Top 20 player, bro, for real.
Yeah, exactly. Like, I'm not trying to just like rewrite history and make it seem like this guy's a bum. But the reality is the last 2 years have been a shadow of himself, except for the odd performance here and there. And it's just like, in the op role, do you really want that and think that you're going to be able to have consistent success without it? Because look, it's all cool that you have these cool stories at majors and those are all the most important tournaments, but you do need to have some success outside of that to be considered an elite level team.
I think they know that. I mean, Carrigan's mentioned like they need to win trophies this year, right? So they understand that how or why they haven't made changes is one thing. Let's talk about teams that have, though, because I realized...
one quick thing to say on that. Here's why I actually don't even believe that FaZe actually think this is awesome and this is the lineup they would choose. And I think this is why I just speculate that they're essentially like handcuffed without having the money to spend to buy any of the players we're talking about. Is just think about when they were losing that grand final of the major. They were getting their shit absolutely pushed in. I remember every other major final they lost, they were crying afterwards, they were distraught. They were laughing. They were just like, lol, what are we even doing in this final like that? Actually, we don't. They were almost basically just like, take the trophy, you deserve it, man. We could never have won this final. You don't do that if you really believe this roster can like win championships. And that. Otherwise, you have the mentality, if you're Carrigan at the end of your career, like, this is the last one, I've got to get this one. You could just tell by the vibe and the dreaded vibe in that final. They knew they shouldn't even be there. They knew
Yeah.
that was like free money, basically. They was on a free roll at the casino.
Yeah, and the quick one for me, really quick before we move on, is like the sad thing is that FaZe has 3 excellent pieces to build around to
Sure.
actually
Yeah,
have
yeah.
a team that could be top 5 in the world. Like you
Yes.
still have Kerrigan, who's still a quality in-game leader. Then you have Twist and Frozen, who are fantastic in their roles. Like if you just had a better entry rifler in an opera that was just decent, doesn't even have to be amazing, doesn't even have to be a top 5 opera in the world. Just needs to be like solid, like a wonderful, perhaps something like that. You know what I mean? The team could be a top 5 team in the world.
That's
what
also
makes it
why,
so
by the
sad.
way, Dust, generally, I don't actually hate on Jacob. Look, I don't think Jacob will end up being some world-class right, but I actually think it's just brokey, mate. If you had a better opera, I think it would even be enough.
Yeah,
I think, as
probably.
you said, with the pieces you've got, you could probably already compete and be in the mix to be in some semis, make a final, maybe
Sure.
even nick like a PGL or something,
Yep.
I'm trying a whole new skin for 2026 and just randomly throw out statements and then move on. So the statement is, I believe in FaZe and I believe in Kerrigan, and I think you're both wrong. So I also think that the team that probably should have made a change is Liquid, but we are going to move on with that conversation because
Right,
I
you
kind of
believe in 'em?
realized I don't believe in
There you
Liquid,
go.
to be
Checkmate.
fair, but I should just believe in them. But
There you go. Just
hear me
believe in
out.
it, have faith.
While we were talking and I kept bringing up the vibes, and that was very tongue-in-cheek, I actually started to realize that some of like the most interesting roster changes that did happen in the off-season actually, for me, do relate to vibes. So for the Spirit change,
That looks
Magixx,
entirely vibe-related, doesn't
that
it?
was vibrant. That was like Magixx lifts the
Yeah.
team spirits. He seems to be the donk whisperer. Let's make him an IGL. I thought that was. I mean, I thought Maladoy was a terrible move, and look how that worked out. So maybe I'm wrong, but I just don't see this being an upgrade, Thorin.
Can I
to
sell
this
you a
team.
little bit?
Go on.
Can I try to woo
Go
you a
on.
little
Oh,
bit?
really?
Do it.
Okay.
Do the
Yeah.
madman pitch.
So
Pitch me this
I'm
move.
going to start easy. I mean, removing's way to bring Zontix back is just like, that's just common sense, I think, right? I think we can
Fair.
all at least level
Yeah,
on
yeah.
that one, okay? And the reason, and
Causeway.
here's the other thing, here's the other like behind the scenes theme I kind of want to give to that though, is that it didn't cost you anything. The guy was already on your bench.
Yep.
You didn't have to do a buyout.
That's
You
why it's
just
good
bring him
GMing.
back off the bench, you bring him back in the lineup, and you see how it plays out, right? It's the same thing with Magixx in the IGL slot. Like, yeah, we obviously don't know how he will perform as an IGL, but I don't think Chopper was some type of calling genius. And it seems like the trend that a lot of people seem to believe is that this is Hallie's team. He's the one that kind of calls the shots. It's his system. And so you just need to plug someone in who can follow that, much like what Sacrone's doing with Brolin right now, right? Over on the mouse sports side of things. But here's the kicker for me, Sam, is like, you're right. It may be a disaster. Magixx may not be able to do the IGLing role. They may fall a little bit because of it. But again, you've risked nothing to take this chance in the sense that you spent no money. You haven't gone and spent the buyout on another IGL
Fair.
gambling that they would work for your team. All you've done is bring 2 people off the bench, put them back on their normal salaries, and you see how it plays out. And if it doesn't work, then you can spend the money on a buyout to bring someone in if you feel like you need to do an IGL change or something along those lines. So I actually like how they've done this, in my opinion.
Do you not think, though, that there is like so much more pressure on this organization not to fuck up? And the reason I say that is because you have Donk in your lineup and he doesn't look happy. He didn't look happy last year. He still doesn't look happy. At some point, if you're just testing things out and throwing some stuff against a wall to see what sticks and to save money, and we know that this organization doesn't exactly need to save money. They've made a lot in where they've been. I mean, at what point does Donk go, guys, I'm the best player in the world, this isn't working for me? Because that would be my concern if I was GMing this team, is like, it's all well and good to try stuff, but you got to keep him happy. And if Hallie is the main voice and he's calling and he's sort of, making the decisions on how things are called, well, it wasn't working with Chopper, right? So like, is it going to be any different with Magixx? To me, it felt like the Magixx move was more like, people aren't happy with Chopper, let's bring in a player that they vibe with and is like their mate.
Yeah.
That was kind of how I read it. And I thought, that's insane for a team that has like a generational talent like Donk and he's not lifting trophies.
No, but that's why I actually think that's why they made exactly these 2 moves. Because the thing I keep pointing out to people is what Dust just said. These aren't new players to Spirit. Dog's played with all these players before. In fact, I would even imagine they're not even sitting down thinking, really, is Magixx a great IGL? Will he one day be like IGL of the year? They're just thinking, can he do the job? Because I think Donk likes him and I think Ali likes him. I think actually the difference is, as much as a fan, it's very easy to criticize both Magixx and Zontix for what they aren't. Magixx isn't a top fragger in this point in time. Zontix is a guy who's a bit passive on the T side and shoots people in the body, etc. But if you look at what they are, like, I think it's actually a fundamental principle of Team Counter-Strike that you can accept someone not being good in another area if you value what they do bring to the team. So I do think that actually Magixx is an immaculate vibes player, as far as I can tell. They all seem to really like him and seem to think he fits into their system, etc. And I agree with DusT. To me, the Zontic one was a slam dunk. You do that any day of the week. It's funny that as much as people think Donk was mad at his team in the major, I thought he was mad at one, Chopper losing some of those rounds, and then two, the fact that the team let the overtime game get away from them. I never thought he was specifically mad at Shiro or he thinks the team sucks. I could believe maybe he thinks Zway's not that good. That's why I thought him defending him afterwards was a little bit that seems a bit two-faced to me, mate. If I had to guess, you probably had a vote and you voted against him if I had to guess.
How he put him on his dream team, though. That was the biggest meme of all.
Yeah,
time.
that was some bullshit, of course. I know.
Oh my god!
And also, you don't have to feel bad for Zway. Not only did he get to have all that salary, get to win some events and go to top 4 at the major. He's in fucking whatever.
Paravision,
yeah, he's in Paravision. He's in a team that's actually appropriate level. It's better than the major. Yeah. So I actually think it worked out for him. He could actually now have a real career. But no, I do think here's what's funny. Spirit is a good example, in my opinion, of where a vibes change can, because as you say, it's actually mainly all about keep Donk happy, and then Donk is literally a miracle worker in Counter-Strike. So the happier you make that guy, the more chance you have to win. And also, I think the real X factor of this team is not even related to any of these moves. It's Tane has never played like he did in Heroic. If they ever get that fixed, it's not even going to matter who the IGLs, I'm telling you.
That's fair.
If you have Donk fragging out his mind, Shiro's just a really consistent player who does what he does. And then Tane's a good player. You will already have so much firepower. You can make it work, in my opinion. So even though I get why people are skeptical, there's some moving parts. We don't. Also, by the way, I'll just throw this out there finally. Technically, you could also still bring Chopper back in 2 months too. That's also an option. You know, if it's getting halfway through the season, it's not going well, you can bring it back and get him ready for the next major. So I don't hate the move for that reason. That's the part I think so underrated about the Spirit GMing, is that's how you know they really don't want Zway, by the way, because they're not even letting him sit on the bench and then come back. They just let him go already. Whereas in my opinion, they've actually been very shrewd with how they've let people come in and out the lineup and when they've done the moves. That's not a lot of teams in Counter-Strike do that, actually.
Yeah. I also just wonder, who else could you have gotten to be the IGL of this team?
Yeah.
That's the other obvious question you have to ask. Really, the only options I can even think of is either Boomich from BetBoom would have been one of the only rifling IGLs I could think of. Then other than that, it's James, the only real other option I can think of over at Paravision. And it's you don't want that. So I think
you have to ask him to do the fallen and not be an AWP, don't you? So
that's exactly what you'd have to. That's 100% what you have to. There ain't no way you're taking the AWP out of Shiro's hands. So I think that's the other thing that kind of pressured this move is not really a whole lot of other fancy options out there that look appealing.
Random statement to end this that I'm just going to throw out perfectly. I'm actually really excited about this because for the first time, or at least while he's IGLing, Spirit's post-match interviews will actually be interesting because Magixx will be doing them. So that's a bonus for anyone watching. We don't have to be bored out of our mind.
That's the other problem. After
he's my favorite.
He says not even real, is it? I know.
Yeah. He's I just told Donk go kill and we win.
Yeah, exactly.
He'll do some shit like that.
It's better than Chopper's interviews. Come on, we all know that. Talking about vibes, the vibes I don't really want to deal with, but I'm curious to see how this works out for Portaz. Is the BC the BC game core purchase? So I thought it was really interesting. Apparently, the rumor is, and I'm going off on a tangent here, that Foot Esports has they obviously bought the Navi Academy roster -1, and they actually have they say that in their contracts the players can't get bought as a core.
Yes,
super clever. I understand why they did it.
Huge good job.
And I do think towards the end of the year, a lot of us were speculating which core is 100 Thieves going to go grab? Is Gamer Legion going to lose their core? I never saw the Saw core being one that was up for grabs, DusT, and then boom, suddenly here it is.
The joke was right there by Seesaw. You couldn't. It's like workshop.
I'm still on holiday. My brain is not warming up. But I mean, there we go, DusT. This is the BC game lineup. What did you think of this when you saw this lineup?
All right, so first things first, just to be a little bit fair, apparently BC Game was trying to target other things first, right? This wasn't their first option.
I heard
Spirit was one.
Call.
Well, I also heard Heroic was one that they tried to go after and didn't get.
I think it was implied Gamer Legion at some point in time,
Gamer Legion, I think, was another one. So they did try to do better than this, so I'll give them credit on that one. But this is what they've done, and this is an absolute abomination. This is going to crash and fall so hard. It's one of those teams that I'm going to love to watch, not because I think they'll succeed, but because you just can't look away. It's a train wreck. You just have to see how it plays out, because I just don't see this working at all. And it's sad because it would be cool to see Simple on a legit team competing at tier 1 events and actually having a chance to do something, but it's not going to be with this team. And I do understand the kind of, I don't know how to describe it, but like you can obviously shed parts off as you play more games and you build like a new core with the core that you bought. You can start shedding off pieces and bringing in new players and kind of rebuilding the team over time, which is probably what will wind up happening. But yeah, this is just this. There's no way this team does anything. There's no way.
Really?
Yeah.
Shall I sell you on it?
Oh, I know. I was setting you up because I knew this was coming.
Okay.
Come on.
First of all, I have an obvious bias, which is if you ever ask a question, could Simple... Yes. I don't need to the end of it. Like, Simple in Counter-Strike is my Lord and Savior, and I think he can accomplish everything, and I can accomplish everything through him. You have to understand that. So,
yeah. I knew this was coming.
And by the way, I'll tell you what, as much as I have been wrong so far, because to be the problem so far is he's never been on one consistent team, played a bunch of lands, and actually had like a 6-month period. So it also feels like, unfortunately, like I'm getting tricked a third time, like Lucy with the football. Like, can you actually just play CS now? But assuming he is actually going to play CS, first of all, as you saw at that major, it never totally leaves someone that good, mate. There's always some of that talent lurking in the background. And clearly, if you ever could get like a string of 3 or 4 lands in a row with a real team where you actually put the hours in, I think already it's clear to me he could be a good player and certainly be like a significant player, even statistically. The reason this move I actually think is really interesting is because of the Taz move. That's the most interesting part to me. Look, I think Muteris is a pretty decent IGL. Seems like he's worked with like lesser pieces, etc. I even think of those players on his team, the Aragorn guy's all right as well. He was kind of like the replacement for you jerks and people. So he was okay. He's certainly not a top player, but he's okay at like his role in the game, like an entry rifler, basically. I don't think that they're like top players. But first of all, I do think if they get to land, Simple can be good. The electronic part is the one that scares me. But that's why, believe it or not, of all the fucking, whose music is that playing? Taz. The idea Taz is going to be in the team, actually, I think is the X factor. Because do you know what? What did everyone, even though you're slightly wrong, what did everyone bang on Taz for in G2? It's just a bloody cheerleader. He's just trying to be friends with the players. Mate, that is literally what is required in this exact roster right now. Because there is no world where you just let the 3 Portuguese players who've been like journeymen, never done anything massive in their careers. You don't just leave them in a room with Electronic and Simple, mate. They will just be, they'll be torn to shreds. There'll be nothing left. There'll be a bunch of skeletons all stripped of all their flesh and spirit and soul and evaporated out into heaven itself. So you are absolutely going to need some of the best man management you have ever seen in Counter-Strike to make this team work. But I'll tell you what, Dust, there are very, very few veteran players that I think people like Simple, Nico actually respect. And I'll tell you what, Taz is in that group, in my opinion. I don't know yet if he can make it work in this sense, but I'll tell you what, I actually do think it's going to be interesting to see that factor. Because I think Taz has to immediately have some amazing connection with Simple, get him on side. Because obviously, it goes without saying, if Simple and Electronic used to wreck Na'Vi players when they were like a top 5 team in the world for failing, they're going to be going so hard on these guys. Like that crazy guy, that you are going to be crazy at the end of this fucking roster. Aragorn, something about a broken, whatever. You get the point anyway. I was doing some free association there. The point is, though, like these people are going to have a very, very hard time playing with someone whose expectation is I should be one of the best teams in the world. So I think the coach is mega essential in this roster. So I will say it's a massive X factor. No one can know yet how that'll work out. But here's the positive. If you're Taz, mate, this is a chance to turn it all around. After all that negative press from the G2 period of people saying you got carried by monsters, if you can actually make this roster work at all, like any results on land, you will get a lot of stock. You'll get a big boost of it. You must have something going for you.
I remember when Simple was on that Na'Vi lineup where they had
also
JL.
Taz, friend of the show, shout out.
Yeah, we like Taz.
Yeah,
That's why I was like, Taz, this is a brave move. You said you liked a challenge. But and the reason I bring this up is I want to tell you the story from Cologne when I got to see...
tamed Thorin. If he can tame Thorin, surely he can tame Simple too.
I don't know because I remember seeing Simple on that lineup with Alexi B, JL, Emma, and I still remember as clear as day at Cologne because we got to watch them live during the group stages. And I didn't hear what he said because I wasn't standing behind him, which apparently now we can't do. Thanks, Pimp and Kassad. But Simple said something. And when I tell you, I thought JL was going to cry. And the look of like just the solemn...
What that feels like, eh?
Utter like it wasn't even sadness. I got to try and explain this energy from this team. Like they just looked like broken men. Yeah. And Blade was quiet the whole time. And when I saw Taz announce as the coach for this Dust, I just remember those 30 seconds that I got to witness. And I was like, with 3 sentences, Simple broke an entire team. And Blade had nothing to say. And I was like, Taz, like I can only presume that Taz maybe has the player ego to bring in to understand how to like kind of bring that back into control. But when you've got Simple and Electronic together, my heart breaks for the rest of the players in this team. And I was worried about Taz, DusT, because this could be the biggest train wreck we've ever seen, or it could be the greatest
It also
mind.
wreck his career, true. That's also
Yeah, I
true.
mean, it could wreck Taz, or maybe it could be incredible. But I'm going more
before we say
train
for sure it'll wreck his career. Let me pose this question. Obviously, if he succeeds with this team, it will increase his stock heavily. If this team doesn't work out, does it really knock his stock down very much? I don't think it does, because I don't think people are expecting this team to do anything anyway. And if it doesn't work out and you're looking at Taz as a coach, you're like, yeah, well, I mean, you didn't really have very many pieces other than Simple. So, like, fair enough, that team didn't really perform well. So, actually, I think it's kind of a low risk move for him in that regard. Also, secondly, he's probably making at least a good salary out of this, I would hope. And then the other thing I'll say is this is like, if you're talking about a guy who comes from a background of dealing with tumultuous environments within a team and still trying to find a way to make that team succeed, Taz is like by far a guy who is a product of environments like that, who still got his team to actually have success, right? So, I think in that regard, he definitely can be a good fit. It's just my issue is this, is like, yeah, I think Simple can thrive with the op on this team, and I am excited to see him compete. But again, you just look around, like, I agree with Thorin. I think Meter did a pretty good job as an IGL at Saul. But the issue is you didn't get the best piece, which was Agile. Like, that would have been sick. Like, I actually would have been interested if they would have been able to keep Agile on the team and use that core that way instead of letting him go to 100 Thieves. But for me, it's like, yeah, Crazy hasn't done anything at all to make me think he's a good player. Aragorn had one good land. That was that Bucharest Smashes event that we were at, Sam, where he did play very, very well. And that team did have a very deep run against good opposition. So that was a nice little highlight there for him. But before and after that, he hasn't really done a whole lot of anything to give me a whole lot of faith that he can continue to replicate that performance. And then, yeah, the electronic thing is just like, what's he doing here? What's he doing? This guy hasn't played at a high level in years.
You have actually made me think. This is how you know you've penetrated the mists of the Simple glazing.
Okay.
Because actually you have made me think of one negative. I'll tell you one immense negative to this squad, which is if you are anyone who isn't called Materials, because I'm assuming they want him to be the IGL. If you're the other two Portuguese players, the thing that might actually also make you play badly is you almost certainly will just get fucking booted out the team as soon as they can get anyone else. Like, as you're saying, 100%. Your job basically is, it's like when you remember when the fucking Sangal core went to Heroic. We knew all three of you weren't making it to the end of this story alive, boys. One of you's got a red shirt on in an away team. Like, it's going to go badly for one of you. At that point, it's like some Harvard shit, like, look to the side of you. One of you will not be here in a semester or whatever. Like, that's what it's like, because essentially, you can't win. If you do badly, the team probably fired anyway. If you do well enough, then Simple's going to go to the management and go, right, get this one more player, and then we'll actually be like a playoff team or something. So it is true. If you wait like 3 months, in theory, they're going to surely do an upgrade. By the way, that's also a positive people are ignoring. Just based on the numbers we've heard of the buyout here and what they're paying Simple and what his buyout was, and then the people they're inquiring about, it is implied, by the way, BC Game, a massive casino, has mad money to spend, mate. Like, they're certainly not one of these teams, like, there's some much bigger and better teams, the phases and the obviously, well, they don't look like they want to spend money. So I will say, the one downside for me is this. The other call people forget that the rumours they tried to sign was Astralis. And the rumour with that was that those players were like, fuck no. Like, because they knew what they were walking into. They actually know what Simple's like, bro. And also, by the way, spoiler, if you're the Saw players, you can't say no. You have to say yes, even if this is
100%.
You have to. You just have to.
They didn't have a choice. Saw the organization, saw the check coming through. They're like, hey, you guys are see you later. We need this.
I mean, let's be realists here, though. I presume the idea from BC Game is we go to a couple of events, Simple pops off, we show people how attractive this lineup is, and we can attract some big names. My gut instinct is the big names will do the Astralis and just be like, oh, hell no, because they know what they're walking into. They've seen enough of it behind the scenes. So maybe you'll attract young talent that is a bit more talented than what you have. But I don't imagine seeing a big name making a move to this lineup anytime soon. No matter how much he pops off on LAN, I think people will be afraid of the Simple curse. So I'll
do my best to bully people to join anyway, but yeah.
You will. I know you will try.
It's all good.
You have Simple, I have Fallen. This will be the crosses we die on. I want to talk about a team that didn't buy a core, and we all thought that they would. Big Brain Messioso apparently seems to think that 100 Thieves can make it without. I actually saw him posting something the other day about how they're not even going to try to do CCTs until they absolutely have to. So he's got something figured out.
I've got something for you. I've got a little rant. This
Oh, I'm
just show,
ready.
you know the Maui's favourite meme, the flirting harassment meme. You know the one where the girls in the office, and then the Chad hunk guy goes like, "Hey, how you doing, sweetheart?" Or whatever, and she's like, "Oh," and then the fat guy who's losing with all the spots goes, "Hey,
And
how
then
you
it's
doing?"
sexual
She's like,
harassment.
"Scary," well, you're like, "Chart." Like that meme is what everyone's doing now with these two teams. So wait a minute. You're telling me 100 Thieves bought a bunch of washed-up players to do roles they've never done before, and then some like relative unknowns that are the real talents, right? That roster hasn't even been flamed. It has no reason right now that should be a good roster, by the way. Like everyone in reality is just so happy that Rain and Device get to continue their careers. We're all just pretending. No, that's fine. Yeah, that's fine. Then think about what you just said there about CCT. I was told by my friend Jason Little Momo Moses O'Toole that Simple must go and grind for like 6 months, playing every online game, trying his absolute hardest. And if he does, then he's allowed to play in tier 1. Oh, but when 100 Thieves with all these washed players getting giant fucking checks to do nothing so far, they're going to sit back and just watch and go, I'll just wait till there's an appropriate moment to play a small lad. Well, that's fucking rich, isn't it? Why don't you grind, boys? Get online, earn that paycheck, start grinding in CCT. Because, by the way, that's what Simple was playing. People ignore this. I would have understood if Simple had been playing online games, but they'd had like, you know, maybe they'd got to Star Series or they had a VRS point they could go and invite. They didn't have a single land. They had that one tiny shitty Swedish land to play. Right? These guys aren't even going to play online games. They're just going to sit back and with nothing shown yet about the roster. So I'm actually amazed at that. I get why people flame BC game, but holy fuck, is there some CS royalty just getting to go past with no criticism. Emperor just completely buck naked. Everyone, interesting new choice of clothes there, Mr. Device. I think that could work out there. What is that Glaver tiara you're wearing? Give me a fucking break. Get out my face with that shit.
Okay, so I haven't had a chance.
That little cook whack.
It looks better than
I
Saul,
haven't had
though.
a chance. Yeah, I haven't had a chance to.
That's
fair.
And scene. And scene.
You notice I never said the BC game was good. I said Simple's good. There you go.
You said Simple's good.
That.
Okay, so I'm in somewhat of agreement, just because I think having a player that's never IGL'd alongside a coach that's never coached is absolutely terrifying. Obviously, I'm a huge Glaive stan. Obviously, I'm a huge Rain stan. I don't know how this looks now, though, because you're completely changing up the roles. I'm just going to say it. Like, I loved Prime Astralis. Like, they were my favorite. I don't think Device, I think he's looked a shell of who he was as a player for a long time. And to be frank, I don't know if he ever comes back. I just think that I know it's a harsh thing to say, but I just think from like all the illnesses and pulling out of events, and sometimes I wonder if he even wants to be here, or if he's here because he just doesn't know anything else and he's afraid of stepping down. But he hasn't looked himself in such a long time. So you've put him in, and I understand it's an experience thing, but you know that there are teams that are far superior, have AWPers that are far superior to him. And then you bring in a bunch of youngsters who maybe are talented, but it's a lot to throw in. And then on top of all of this, you're going to do the NIP climb, DusT, where you're like, okay, cool. And by the way, you need to try and qualify, and you don't have to play shitty online CCT competitions. Well, Nip had to freaking grind them every single day just to get a spot at the major. So like, I don't see how this works unless Messioso has some great plan, but I'm presuming it involves having to finish in very specific places at very specific tournaments.
Yeah,
I think it's implied he means it because he's like figured out the min-max, like a la Paravision. It's implied to me he's going to pick the right small, like Philadelphia type lands. And if you get enough wins there, you just get into the... So, by the way, I don't even disagree with that. I actually think that is better, as I just alluded to. I think telling people like Simple and Device, right, play 3 months of online CS games, that's a great way to get them to blow their own head off, mate. Like, that's probably the worst thing you could tell that guy. But you're going to... This also means, though, if you somehow go to those lands, and there were teams that did this, some of those Draculans and Birch lands, if you go to it and you fuck that land up, it's going to be the greatest egg on your face of all time. Because remember, the reason I've mentioned those lands in particular, DusT, is the known teams were losing those lands. Like, you looked on paper, you're like, oh, Liquid and, whatever, Fnatic will walk these lands. Bro, that was like scary, some of those teams they were losing to. That was really nervous shit.
Yeah, I mean, 100 Thieves is an interesting one for sure. I think that we've all kind of discuss kind of the trouble points, right? Like, it's obviously a concern. Will Rain be able to perform as an IGL? Will Glaive be able to perform as a coach?
It's just, the only ones I'm not questioning are actually the young talent. I think the young talents are pretty good pickups. Those look like legit signings, mate.
Yeah, I'm actually super stoked about it. Like, I think Agile low-key is a very, very good player. I was really impressed with what he looked like on Salt this last year. I think he fits the role perfectly that they're trying to use him for. I think he's great. Poi did look like a guy that did deserve a chance, an opportunity like this as an aggressive rifler. Sierra, I admittedly don't know as much about.
I heard some hype about him in the last few years. People were saying
he was on that like shitty TSM
people
project
often said
thing.
he should maybe be on an Astralis type team. He had his props.
Yeah. So I mean, I think the young talent's good. It is just like, how will Rain IGL, how will Glaive coach? Can Device actually have any sort of form with the AWP again after really, really struggling to do so for some time? Like, those are three giant question marks for sure.
Yes.
But it's one of those things where this will be a fun experiment to watch, because this is going to be that attempt a la a nip, like you were talking about, Sam, where it's like, can you actually, in this era of VRS, build a brand new team with no core, with no foundation, with no already chemistry between players and things of that nature, and actually find a way to game the system to get yourself into major contention? And I mean, I think this is a long-term goal. Like, I don't think they'll make the first major of the year. They won't be at Cologne, in my opinion, but they could make a Singapore. Like, it is possible depending on how things go. But it's one of those things where I'm not totally against the team, but I do have my reservations for sure about it. But like Thorin said, I'm at least intrigued to see what the young talent this team can do, because I think they are worthy of having an opportunity like this.
And remember, as well as Glaive and Device, they have a third member of CS royalty, Sean Gares. He's like the GM type figure. Where's the thing? I would say, looking at this roster, the fact you're going to have to already go through lands, and you're going to have to wait all these months to see if actually Rain's good, and his Device still good, and he's going to be good coach. I would say, all right, Sean, you must fucking believe in miracles. Actually just came out as a Christian the other day, so actually confirmed, does indeed believe in miracles. There you go. Wasn't even a diss. It's just true.
Okay. You know what is kind of curious, moving right on, is this should have been, for me, what I thought would be like a major talking point. And maybe a year or two ago it would have been, but now it just kind of, we just went, oh well, sure thing. Was Astralis, quote unquote, going international? That was always like the big conversation. Right now, we don't even care about this. I don't even care about this team anymore. And I know that sounds horrible.
Astralis has a player from Lithuania, and it isn't JL, for fuck's sake. It's a guy called Ryu or something. What are we even doing?
Right.
What is this? Astralis, the most Danish team of all time. What are we even doing? What is this?
But it wasn't even a talking point. I mean, this was kind of the shocking thing for me.
No one cares, it looks like.
No one cares anymore. This is how you know you're getting old, when you just like constantly reminisce about the good old days, and you're like, this is Astralis. Like, this was one of the best teams of all times. Maybe you could argue at this point, some would say still has that crown. And like, this would have been such a big thing. And now we're just like, oh yeah, shame. They had to try something, DusT.
Yeah, I'm with you. I really couldn't care less about this team, this organization, anything really about it. Because here's the thing, like, to be fair to Ryu, he had a similar level of resume to some of the young guys that got on 100 Thieves, in the sense that he did perform pretty well at smaller LAN events and stuff on Monty, and actually did look like a guy who deserved a call out, similar to like Karn, who got picked up by NIP. Like, he's one of those guys that was doing well enough to deserve a shot at this, right? So I'll at least be fair to Ryu in that regard. The Fuzi one, I mean, I guess in today's opping market, not necessarily a bad selection, because again, I don't know who else you could have gotten.
Might have even been on a better team. Quite frankly, as people have said online, I'm surprised the Fizz wasn't looking at someone like him. It seemed like it would be reasonable.
Yeah, absolutely. So in the sense of the pieces they picked up, they actually do have some upside to them. But you're right, like, the identity of this team was that they were the Danish team, right? And so to go international, it's the trend that everyone else is kind of doing, right? Big is even doing this now, when they were always fully German. Like, they finally gave up on that, and they've gone this route as well. But to me, it's just like, I mean, other than Stair being like a rifler, I still have some faith in. I don't know what else this project can actually do. Like, even if Ryu and Fuzi like max out and wind up being super good performers, I don't think this team is, I mean, they would barely break into the top 10.
I'll tell you the way that we all get sanity about this roster. Just delete the word Astralis and imagine this was a brand new random. Imagine this was the new Gamer Legion lineup. Who would go crazy and go, yeah, you'd go, maybe they can go to a LAN and win a game. That's it. You wouldn't realistically go. The problem is, that's why, as Sam says, the weight of it being Astralis, though, that's what we're all still thinking of, and thinking like you have to get back to the top level. And you can go, I think you have to just reset that and just imagine this is a brand new project. And if you look at these players, actually, if anything, Huxley's ended up with not very good players. He's just got an average ass lineup, hasn't he? This just looks like it could be, I don't know, the 32nd best team in the world or something. Like, it's nothing terrible, nothing great though. Who knows?
I'm pretty much in agreement. I mean, I'm also curious, has Jabby ever played on a non-Danish speaking team?
I don't think so.
I mean, I'm presuming
Most of them
Hooksy's
wouldn't
going to...
have.
Yeah, calling in English. I mean, I think
That's the one good thing about it is at least Hooksy has international calling experience. Like at least he's been in an environment like this before. So like that does help a little bit as opposed to if you would have had someone else there instead, like maybe that wouldn't have gone as well. So that's one thing that does help a little bit.
I mean, I do think Hooksy has the experience to handle this. I just don't think he's got very good pieces. We all knew, I mean, I say this with confidence, but I think when the whole Astralis buyout happened, I'm pretty sure most of us presumed Device was on his way out. Like that was kind of based on the ownership and the change. But I wasn't surprised. I don't think that they had anyone else that they could really go to. There was no way to keep this Danish. And I do think that they're going to bleed. I presume Jabby will be the next one out. I imagine he's already looking for an out somewhere. We'll see. But it's the end of Astralis, really, in my books. I think that they'll be like a good tier 2. Possibly we'll see them once in a while, which is such a pity, really, when you think about where they were versus where they are now.
Yeah, but here's the thing, because this isn't 2023, here's the thing, I've spiritually buried Astralis already. We're just putting the body into the grave now, and now someone else is wearing their fist, like, hello, I'm with you. No, I'm sorry, I'm actually Danish in Astralis. Like, it's not the real Astralis. Astralis died years ago, didn't it? We just finally put the nails in the coffin and put the body down. Like, we just got let go of them. Especially because, let's be real, like, when people say Astralis, they don't just mean the name of being Danish. We mean things like Glaive, Device. Like, there's none of those players left. Like, there's not even Magixx anymore. Now you've got the old heroic people and people from Copenhagen Flames and then people from other... It's not even Astralis at all to me at this point. That's why I say it's actually handy to just not think of them as Astralis.
They actually don't. You're right. They don't have... There's not one those... That's so sad. Like,
true.
Anyway, now I'm just going to go be miserable tonight. Let's talk about your favorite moves. I mean, it has been, I think I'm stealing this from Hawka where he called it roster Mania. But it has it was very clever. I enjoyed it. That's why I've stolen it. But I'm curious if there was a move that you were impressed by, that you liked, that you were kind of intrigued by, DusT.
Not really. I mean, I kind of called out one. Like, I actually think the Nip Car move actually helps them out a lot. I will throw that one in there really quick because I do think Udrix was not doing anything for that team.
Think about Major, mate. They were this close to like winning those games. Like, I think you upgrade that. That's the most obvious position upgrade as well. Udrix, unfortunately.
Yeah, so if
that slightly better, they could do a lot better.
Yeah, so if Karn is just a solid entry fragger, and you already had Kaspersky who was playing at a very high level, they do need Wrinkle to level up a little bit as well, to be fair. Like, I do think he was kind of in a slump for a lot of last year, that he needs to really figure out a way, because I think he has the potential to be a really explosive opper and a really big piece of that team. And that's a good 3 pieces of talent to have, with Shush being kind of like your veteran support piece, and then Snappy obviously being an IGL who has some chops. So that's one move that I thought was kind of interesting, that I thought could maybe level that team up a little bit. But other than that, yeah, a lot of the other moves that were out there seemed like side grades at best, or potentially steps back, aside from the ones that we've already talked about, right? I mean, obviously the Mongols one is kind of tough because, like, what else could they have done? Like if Sinzu's not coming back to the team, the Cobra's era pickup was probably the only other Mongolian player in that role that made sense to pick up, unless they like found some young guy in their academy system that they have. But it's still probably going to take them a step backwards, right? So yeah, it's hard to really put your thumb on any moves that are just like slam dunks.
In fact, the worst thing about the Mongols one is if Senzu just never came back or was still benched for burnout reasons, and he's benched, that would be fine because we wouldn't question it. But the idea, like, they signed a different player and then he is going to still play but for someone else, is like, can we just know what happened already? I'm not an insider in the Mongolian scene, so I don't have any way to know this information. Can you just, like, even if it's by a euphemism, just let us basically know who was at fault. That's all we need to know on this one, because that is going to haunt everyone if we never figure that out.
I'm getting so upset by it. When I heard him say that he's open to other teams, I got so mad because I was like, but it was burnouts before the major. Like, what is happening? Someone tell us, and no one is speaking. That entire team is on like some fancy late night show in Mongolia, and not a single Mongolian journalist has found out what the hell is going on.
Yep.
It's very frustrating. I'll tell you my favorite move of roster Mania. I just thought this was genius. I just don't know why they didn't think of it before. Soulfly to Aurora. Wasn't that a great...
By the way, that's what I think DusT means by, like, that's just like a side grade or a downgrade. I don't even think that works.
What was that?
I'll tell you what that is. I'll tell you right now. DusT will know what I mean by this. That is how old school CS teams used to be made. What happens is you don't even, there's no such thing as roles. Or what you do is you just sign the next best player from your country that isn't in the team. Because what I don't get, DusT, is
they didn't even do that.
They did the same thing when they got Jota, though. It's like you signed a player who's a star in a different team, then you go, right, get in the shit roles. It's like, I can't believe we're still doing that in the 2020s, by the way. Like, in the modern day, here's what I don't get. Surely that move is just egregious because the main problems in your team were IGL and coach, mate. It wasn't Jota that was the main reason you lost the tournament. So, but in this scenario, we're just held prisoner of the fact you have to have Magixx as the IGL and the rest of the squad's set. Like, you're not going to kick Magixx, you're not going to kick Santos, you're not going to kick Wikidia. So at that point, there is only one person to kick and there is almost no one to sign DusT. That's the problem. If they have to be Turkish, although I'll say this, I've said it a million times, I get that there's a reason beyond language that matters in culturally. But I will say this. Bro, if there was one, you know, when Astralis wants to be Danish, well, yeah, you can always tell me the angle of, we're trying to do Danish CS story, you know, very tactical, lots of structure. I'm sorry, you could speak English and do the fucking shit that Aurora's doing. I don't even believe there are tactics on some of those rounds. Their tactic is Zantares peek around the corner and shoot two people in the head. Like, I feel like surely this team could just have someone call in English and shoot people. You know what I mean? Do we really have to, does it have to be someone Turkish? I get there's cultural reasons for it, but come on, bro.
Well, I think here I'm going to go the other way. I don't know that they kicked Joe. I think Joe said, "Get me the fuck out of this place," because he's played on international teams before. He knows what greener pastures look like. He's like, I don't have to be stuck on this Turkish only team. I can go out there and find a better team that I actually work with. So that's kind of my angle on that. And then yeah, it's one of those things where like the clear, obvious thing that Aurora needed to do to level up was change the leadership of this team. Like, I'm sorry, Major hasn't done anything in the last couple of years to make me believe that he is going to revolutionize or evolve this team and cover the issues that this team has. They also just don't like playing with each other. You can see it even when they're fucking winning, they don't look like they want to be together, right? So it's one of those issues where if there was an obvious Turkish in-game leader to come in and replace Major, that's obviously the trigger that you pull. But apparently that doesn't exist. And so you're right. Like, I do think, like, eventually you do just have to go international if you want this team to be good. Because, like, Zantares and Wikidia are great pieces. Yeah. Like, those are great pieces to have working for you. Jota, admittedly, I thought Jota did fall off a little bit on the team. Now, how much of that is the environment? How much of that is him individually? I don't know. But he definitely wasn't the same player that he was when he first joined the team by the time he left the team, right? So I do think that is fair to point out. But yeah, this is just sad because this is another team like Mousesports who so clearly needed to make such a key move to stay in the hunt for a contendership and didn't make the right one to be able to do that.
Do you want the ultimate copia of all time? I'll tell you what my favorite roster move is.
Oh,
but this in itself, before I even explain it, just shows you the depths we're going to have to plot. I actually do think that is a really interesting big roster they've made, the one that has Grix and Blame F on it. Like, yeah. I think that's actually, considering it's like on the outskirts of the roster, I think that's actually not a terrible roster. I think that could work.
Can I pose a question to you on that one, though? Could Blame F have not done better than that, though? Come on.
Well, that's
You're
the
telling
problem.
me that this guy couldn't have been an in-game leader for Mousesports or Gamer Legion or something like that?
He should. Like, I think, like, by the way, I'll tell you one thing right now. Whose dog did this guy kill? Why can't he be in 100 Thieves? What's going on? Like, me, he is such a better player than these teams he's on. Why can't he be on FaZe? Why can't he be on 100 Thieves? I don't get it myself, because I agree. I actually still think he's got a few years of being really good, not even as an IGL, mate. He could just be a fragger like he wasn't for that. But for whatever reason, he's good. I'll tell you the best way to describe it. For some reason, Blame F just gives other pro players the ick, if you know what that is. Like, they just don't vibe with him. They just don't like him for some reason. No one wants to play with this guy.
All I'm saying is Gamer Legion picked up fucking snacks to be their in-game leader. You're telling me that you don't go after Blame F in a situation like that? Come on.
I don't get it because, I was going to say, I don't get it because he's good in the server, and I think like during the major I did a lot of like behind the scenes content, so a lot of time in prac rooms with teams and getting to see them kind of, you get a lot more insights into the dynamics, and he is always like, I mean, maybe he's not like this. Maybe he was like this because there was a camera there, but I think this is a very hard act to put up because I saw it back in the day when he was in Astralis as well, like behind the scenes. He's always super positive. He's super professional. He's always kind of like cheering up his teammates.
Seems like a very chill team, yeah.
He stopped. I mean, during the major, I'll give you a little bit of insight that we were doing some question and answers, and he stopped the one player and he was like, wait, don't say that, because actually the draws just come out and they're going to play these guys and you're going to look like an idiot. Like, you don't want to get memed. And like, he's good at like stepping up and being that guy. And I always found him really professional, really fun. And he's always like, I think he brings quite a positive vibe to teams, but for some reason he gives everyone the ick, and I don't get it. So maybe behind the scenes he is a complete dog. Maybe in TeamSpeak he's horrible to deal with, but I just don't understand.
I've never believed that. I do think it's two things. One, I do think people just think from back in the day that's a really tired narrative now that he just hates everyone. I do think,
so
by the way, in CS, there's two types of players everyone hates. One is the bullshit streaky AWPer because the rest of us aren't AWPers. And the other one's the beta. Everyone hates those two players in any POG, in any team ever, unless you, by the way, you're amazing at doing those roles. Now, he doesn't even do that role like that, but that's some shit from like 4 years ago at this point in time. Then the other thing is, by the way, I never meant he was toxic, but another thing I do think gives people the ick is this is why I don't like him as an IGL. I just want him as a rifler. I'm sorry, I do think he does remind me of that stereotype of like a meathead fucking guy who's like massive and 6 skills. He doesn't seem super cerebral to me. I said it politely there. I mean, the reality to me, he's like fucking Hulk smash, and like that's his shit in it. So I don't really know why he's IGLing. I don't get what that is, you know.
Yeah, I mean, it's pretty bad whenever you have to swap back to IGLing and you have to go all the way down the big to do it. Like, yeah. I agree with you. I think he could have stayed as just a rifler and been a solid piece for a lot of different teams kind of within the top 20, 100%, especially that he is a pretty versatile rifler. So to see him follow it down, it's a great move for Big. I applaud them 100%.
I think it looks pretty good for them.
Yeah, from
this
there,
is one of the better rosters they've had in a while, man. This roster looks
I agree. Like for Big,
nice
it's a slam dunk. It's just sad that Blame F has fallen this far down the pecking order, in my opinion. That's one of the saddest ones. The other sad ones for me is that Flamus is stuck on OG. Like that's prison, and then the fact that Insani is still stuck on Made in Brazil is also just really sad.
You really
just joke there is like Flamus. Before he was just stuck in contract prison. Now he's in Counter-Strike prison. He's in OG now. It's like fucking hell, from the frying pan into the fire. Bloody hell, all right. And you've got Katie as your IGL, but you know what?
Good luck.
God bless. You know.
Yeah, that's a nightmare.
Have some fun. I mean, do you think like for me, I'm kind of excited because I do think the likes of I think NIP should be able to do some stuff this year. I think Big now at the start will be able to shake things up a bit, which I do kind of enjoy because I think that those top teams are there. I don't think Aurora will be in the conversation by the time the major rolls around, in my opinion. But I think there's space for one of these teams to kind of push their way through and maybe cause some upsets and do the impossible DusT. And I think with some of these changes, while it might not be the big changes we wanted with the big teams, they're changes that could shake things up a bit.
Yeah, I mean, I think the top 5 is probably going to remain about the same, like Vitality, Furia, Falcons. You know, those are going to remain kind of your top 3 teams, in my opinion. I think Mouse will probably still float somewhere in the top 8. I don't know if they'll stay as high as 4th, though. I think they could easily fall down. But it's like who comes up and takes their spot. Like Spirit, maybe if things work out with Magixx, they move their way back up the pecking order. G2 with more time together, more time with Saul, more time with Hunter IGL, and maybe they pick up a little bit. But yeah, I think of all the moves that we have seen, I think the only one that could really propel a team forward is probably the NIP one. Like if I'm just like scrolling through the rankings, I think that's the one that could move up a little bit. All the rest, I feel like they're either going to kind of stay where they're at, or they may even move downwards, in my opinion.
By the way, another thing we didn't mention earlier was I would have thrown in the same list of people who should have moved, Team Liquid, but that's the same. I said the same thing the last 3 years at this point. So like, okay, I mean, I think everyone knows that at this point in time. So whatever. I'm over Team Liquid, unfortunately.
Same. They didn't even like. I mean, it's not even a double down. They've like. I'm sorry. I've defended this guy, but I can't anymore. They've like triple down on ultimates, and I'm like, what the hell are you guys doing? Like, you have what is considered a good IGL. You have.
There's another team where it's like, bro, Dexter's literally just sat there waiting for the email. Mate, just send it. You know, come on. Because I agree, DusT. When there's no buyout, just roll the dice on it, man. Come on,
just try.
You can
the only thing I can think of at this point is there's something behind the scenes we don't know about Dexter that's keeping teams away from him. I know he's had visa issues in the past, but that seemed to get rectified. Even at the end of his heroic days, he was able to make it to tournaments, and then obviously on Falcons, it was never an issue. So I kind of wonder.
As far as I've heard, by the way, that wasn't some like specific. Despite what the forum conspiracy said, it wasn't some specific thing to blame if that was a problem. That was really one of those ones. Here's what I heard was the gist of it, DusT. The problem is it's really hard to get certain visas, like European Schengen visas and American visas, if you're Russian, or if not very hard, it just sometimes takes like a month, right? And the problem is if you join a team like he was in many times, where it's no Russians except you, sometimes your team manager just doesn't understand how important that is. And they really do say like, hey, get a visa, mate, for the event in 3 weeks.
But I would think of all esports orgs, certainly Liquid would know how to do this thing, right?
So
I mean, yeah, so that's the one. But here, I'll give you one. Okay, I know the Oppa market's tough, right? We all know that. And obviously, for whatever reason, Dexter's just never going to get picked up. I would have taken Regali over keeping Ultimate on this team. Am I the only one?
I
Am
do
I
think
crazy?
Ultimate was like diminishing returns. Like every time I watched him play for the last like half a year, it just got worse and worse in my opinion. Like, he's just average for me, just an average player.
Do you think Liquid would get better if they got rid of him though?
I
'Cause
think if you got Dexter,
worry-
and ironically, I would love that move, mate. I think that's like you got a real chance to roll the dice and just be an actual like.
I don't
the
know if
sixth
it would
best
fix
team
the
or
team
something.
though. I'm gonna say this: like I've actually think Shui's calling on this team's been shambolic. Like I don't know. An Opera would certainly, a steady Opera that performed consistently would certainly help this team compared to the, crazy high ceiling, impressive, flashy play versus incredibly low floor that Ultimate's providing the team. I think there's a lot of other variables on this team that caused them to struggle. So I don't know if like one change would actually fix it, but that's a way to start at least, in my opinion. Like, so that's
The
kind of where
joke
I'm
is
at.
they asked for a flashy Opera. They just got a coach called Flashy. There you go. Misunderstanding. Listen,
was-
I'm
yeah,
not an
that was one of
anymore.
your-
I have to fucking crowbar him in here, don't I? It's all good.
That's one of your weak ones. But I have to say, I want to end this by defending Shui because I really like this narrative of him not calling well is pissing me off because I was like, the guy walked in, he had to take over from Twist, who was the pseudo leader of said team. So that there is, and this is important, like he's making calls, but someone else is kind of questioning them and going, but what about this? What about this? I don't know if Twist was doing that, but I imagine his personality is such that he will add insight. They then get Elysian, and Elysian literally did an interview during the major where he said this. He was like, oh, we had a meeting and Shui likes to call like this, but then we explained that maybe he should try this, and now we're trying to find this amalgamation. And I'm like,
Okay.
the poor dude can't do his job.
Yeah.
Like, there needs to be someone needs to sit them down and go, you are the IGL, you make the calls, and if it still goes to shit, then your head is
Yeah.
on the chopping block. But at this point in time, to me, in my very uneducated, just watching what everyone's saying in interviews and what I see in the server, I think that Liquid has a huge problem in allowing this
No, I know what you
IGL
mean.
to take
Put it this
control.
way, their team looks like you're describing it, like it's done by committee and they're making everyone happy in like a minor way.
doesn't work.
But I agree. What I would do if I was Team Liquid, if I'm like Nazgul, the guy who owns Team Liquid and runs the CS side, I would literally say something similar to what you just said. I would say I would sit down, Shoe here and Flash here, and go, right, here's how it's going to go for this year. You get the first season, you do whatever you want to do and how you think it's going to work. And if we don't like make the major and have this result, you're fired. But you do whatever you want. Like, I'll tell Nerds and Elaine, shut the fuck up if they complain. Ultimate has to do what you want. But because I have to know basically if it's you guys or not, because that's the other problem you have in Liquid. I will say, I think they're in a really tricky situation, Dust, because I think when you have the pieces they have that aren't called Ultimate and Shoe here, their names are so huge, mate. Like, they're the players where you'll feel like an idiot if one of those leaves your team and then gets way better in another team. You know what I mean? Like, if you want to try and make Nerds and Naf and Elige work, like that on paper looks like it could be a really good core of a team. So I think you have to put the pressure on Shuey and Flashy and figure out if it is, and if they don't work, then you do bring in a different piece. Because I do think as well, when you've spent as much and taken such a long, extended, drawn-out period to get that squad together, it feels mad to wipe the deck completely and start over from nothing. That feels crazy.
Yeah, I mean, I guess for me, it's really kind of two things I'll say about this. First off, and I know that everyone's going to be, putting on the better face when they're speaking publicly and things of that nature. And so I get that it's not, the fully transparent thing that I'm thinking it is. But, for the longest time, in every single public-facing comment that's been made about this team from the players, they have all expressed the fact that they have the same philosophy on the game, they speak the same language, they want to play the same style of CS. And so in that case, yeah, maybe there's too many cooks in the kitchen making suggestions, but it's at least they're on the same page on how they want to play, as opposed to when Elise was on FaZe and the way he wanted to play was drastically different than the way that FaZe wanted to play, right? It's not quite the same polar opposites in that regard. So in that sense, it should be able to flow better if you all believe in the same like basics on how you want to play the game. And the second thing I'll say is with the calling with Shuhei, it's not even necessarily like the way he calls starters to rounds. Like, I actually think they have decent openings and decent, like the way that they have the roles flushed out, like I actually think makes a lot of sense. My issue is that when the going gets tough, they just don't have any adjustment factor. And then the other thing that kills me about Shuhei is we all know that like in-game leaders are going to get a little bit of a pass on how well they frag because they're the in-game leader of the team, right? And I'm not expecting Shuhei to give me miracles. In fact,
he had
some
some
games he actually
all-world bad
frags
stats, though. He had some all-world bad stats in Liquid.
Here's my biggest issue with his bad stats. When some other IGLs are getting bad stats, it's because maybe like they're anchoring a site and they miss their shot, or they're doing something in the mid round of a T side and they get caught or something like that, right? Shuhei tries to be the hero of this team. He goes for these crazy individual plays sometimes where there's no utility support, there's no one behind him to trade, there's just a complete like misstep, like he's trying to be the hero of the team and make something happen. It's like, that's not your job. You're supposed to be, you have nerds and Elise, you have huge playmakers. Let them be the guys that go for the hero plays and set them up, make sure that they're doing them effectively.
Here's a
So that's my
controversial
big
take
issue.
for you. Controversial take, but
Go
it's
on.
actually going to be one that's in Sam's wheelhouse, bias. Here's what you do if it doesn't work out. Minus Shoe here, plus JT.
I love that one actually a lot.
I'm not even trolling. People think I'm being edgy with it. I actually think he has shown that he has made miracles work with lesser pieces, mate. You give him actual real good players. I think this guy could cook, mate.
Would that put them
Can you
back
work
in
with
America's VRS, by the way?
I'm not sure.
Not
sure
So
how
you
that
had two
actually
North
works.
Americans, 2 Europeans, and then JT. I don't know
I'm
how
not sure how
he has
it's
NA
determined.
residency.
JT
They
plays-
changed how that worked, didn't they?
Does he have NA residency? He plays on
I
a
think
Portuguese. I know
so.
he has a Portuguese passport.
Maybe it does then. If he has the
I
green
think the
card,
rule
it might
is
be
though
okay,
that if you don't have a majority, it goes to the hardest one. So I think they'd still probably default back to Europe because they have 2
Right.
Europeans, 2 North Americans, and then
With that
I'm not
said,
sure what
though,
JT
I
counts.
will
as.
say, and because Team Liquid was obviously the most famous abusers of that. When people like FlyQuest did it, they did it because they were like a lesser team. When Team Liquid does that, I have always thought that's too cynical. Team Liquid, like you're supposed to be trying to be a top 5 team in the world. If you're a top 5 team in the world, you'd get through the European side. Come on, mate. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
like,
yeah.
I agree.
That makes more sense if you're a complexity or someone, some smaller squad where you're gaming the system to get into the Americas. If you're Team Liquid, your number one goal is be top 5, and if you're top 5, you're going to get through the RS.
Yeah,
You
yeah.
know what I mean? So that if it really does work to make that move, just make the move then.
Yeah, I'm down with the move no matter what. I just thought that'd be like a nice cherry on top if that does actually happen.
And
but
I'm
I
also
don't think
putting
it
that
will.
out there because sadly, this guy isn't someone who's doing like million interviews. He hasn't got a giant personality. So unfortunately, I have to sign up the public in wanting this move too. And then eventually maybe it'll happen.
Maybe it'll happen. I'd love to see how JT performs under another coach because I don't think he's ever actually played with another coach outside of TC. I actually think he started, I might be mistaken here, but I'm pretty sure when he was like 16, 17, he was already playing in a team either coached by TC or playing with TC. So I don't actually know if even how he operates outside
He
of that.
technically was short-term coached by Adren and Mither.
Doesn't
after
count.
TC
That-
yeah,
I
not
don't know if
long
that
term. No,
counts.
you're right, not long
Yeah.
term. Correct.
That'd
Yeah,
be a curious one. That might be an interesting one. This has been great vibes, boys.
Indeed,
But,
love the vibes.
It turns out that Liquid and NIP are actually playing right now, and they're on their 3rd map. It's I think it's currently 6-6. So I'm curious to
OT.
see. It might actually go to OT. Oh, there we go,
It's
OT.
it's
So
OT. Yeah.
let's go see who proves us right and who proves us wrong, and you can let us know your favorite roster change in the comments.